Nature's Wrath by Melody Lagrimas. My eldest brother went his way to a private high school in a non-coastal district. The three of us, an elder brother, an elder sister, and I all went to our public grade school. Purok Pagitpat was a swampy place very near the sea and located just behind one of our school buildings. Although our house then was situated about 200 meters away, the music from the festive village wafted off to our place. Then at midnight, in the morning of August 17, 1976, just a few minutes after the festivity came to a stop, a 7.9 magnitude earthquake awakened us. All of us huddled together in our living room and my mother told us to wrap our bodies with blankets as the night was cold due to a light rain falling outside. A few minutes later we heard siren shots which my parents initially took to be signs of terrorist attacks, as the 1970s also marked a period of political unrest in many parts of Mindanao. About 30 minutes after the tremendous earthquake, a neighbor shouted to my father, "Run! Water! The sea!" My father shouted back asking for clarification, but nobody answered him anymore. So my mother said we had to run too if people were already fleeing, thinking that our city was under siege. My father took my 4-year-old sister, my mom carried my 2-month-old youngest sister, I was assigned to my 12-year-old eldest brother, and my 11-year-old brother and 10-year-old sister were told to stick together. Then we all went down passing under our house because my parents were still convinced that we were being attacked by rebels. It was common in our city before to build a house whose flooring was a few feet above the ground due to frequent high tides or floods from the nearby sea and river. Jamisola Extension then was but a narrow unpaved path which became flooded with people on that fateful night. When we reached the path, all of us were immediately swallowed up by the deluge of people all running for their lives, and we were separated from each other. But my brother just told me to stay quiet and keep on running. Just imagine the scene from the movie Deep Impact where people went up the hill to flee the rushing water. Although we couldn't see any water and didn't really understand why we're running, voices were heard saying that the sea had risen, making us all the more confused. Tsunamis were then unknown to many people in our place, especially for a third grader like me. Throughout the exodus, my mother's shouts could be heard too, calling her children one by one as if calling the roll, and each of us would answer back when our respective names were called. My parents tried to talk with other people to find out what was really happening, and they were told about the rising of the sea, which all sounded nonsense to my young mind. Even my parents couldn't really understand as well, and I was still unsure why we left the house so frantically. At 5 in the morning, my parents decided that it's time for us to go back to the house. My parents, like most of the people who left their homes in haste, were anxious for leaving our house open. Many people decided to go home, too. So we went on another exodus that morning of August 17th. When we came to our place, which belongs to the lowest ground level of the city's mountainous terrain, we found ourselves wading through knee-deep muddy water, thigh-high for me then. Although all of us were safe, our dog had lost all her nursing puppies as they were left on their makeshift kennel on the ground. Maybe she went upstairs and lay on the porch when it started to drizzle, as she usually did, and when the water came, she had no choice but to stay on the porch. We were all stunned when they told us that a lot of people perished while we were running for safety the previous night. My father said that there had been a series of tidal waves that rose from the sea and that dead people littered our surroundings. According to him, most of our neighbors' yards harbored dead bodies of both animals and people. He further said that our school building was pushed off the ground and that our school plaza was littered with small boats and houses that were displaced by the tidal waves. Ever since we got back to our home, and throughout the day, our city further experienced several aftershocks which alarmed and terrified us all. With every little quake, people were frightened that another tsunami might occur. All the dead bodies were brought to the city plaza for families to identify and claim. Almost every day we got news that an acquaintance of ours had either perished or lost a child, a sibling, a parent, or a relative. We made sure that we would be safe should another tsunami occur. My older sister and I would go to a distant relative's house located on the city's upper district before sunset and stay overnight at their place. That went on for several weeks until such time that my parents believed it safe for us to spend the night at home with our family. The Office of Civil Defense reported a total of 1,440 people who died in Zamboanga del Sur. The number of people who were left homeless reached 49,848. Our city had sustained the greatest number of casualties, the majority of which came from Santa Lucia, the biggest and the most populous among the 11 coastal districts of the city. It was believed that the total death toll in all the devastated Mindanao provinces and cities reached up to 8,000 people. The 5 recorded tsunamis and a series of large waves triggered by the quake was considered to be the worst of its kind, as this calamity was included in the historic earthquakes and tsunamis all over the world.